So this is Pamela Landers, and today I'm doing an interview with Marlene Clay. Tomorrow I will be interviewing Michael in Jurassic, who is also here on the screen at the moment. And we'll be talking about, for both of them, their relationship with hand analysis and the whole teaching conversation that we're in. So Marlene is first to be interviewed. So this is our interview for Marlene. So Marlene, I'm going to jump in with the first question is, what attracted you to hand analysis? You know, it's not like it's in the mainstream. So.
Right. Yeah. So I had never heard of it like most people. And I actually went to an event. This was, I think, in 2009, when basically I was questioning everything in my life, trying to figure out what I really wanted to do. I wasn't, I felt like I wasn't really living. I was going through the daily motions, but I just wasn't really happy, but I didn't know what needed to change. And I had found out about coaching, thought that was going to be a good fit for me. And I went to an event and I thought, okay, if I'm going to start a coaching business, maybe I need a coach myself, a business coach. And it just so happened that the person I chose to work with first, she said, okay, the first step is I need to read your hands. And I said, excuse me? What do you mean by that? So she explained it, and I thought, okay, how cool is that? I've always been interested in things that are different, and I thought, wow, never had my hands read. This will be so cool. Wonder what she'll tell me. So I had my hands read, and I was really blown away by it. I won't say there was much that was surprising or new information. It was more a confirmation of what I really knew deep down about myself, that just made me feel like all the things that I had thought about, maybe I should be doing this, or maybe, I don't know. It gave me the confidence to move forward with things I had been thinking about. And there was a lot of validation too of who I really was at my core, and things that I maybe kept hidden or didn't feel that comfortable with sharing all the time. So I was just amazing. And, I went on to coaching training, but at the same time, in the back of my mind, I kept thinking, I want to learn about this hand stuff. That was so cool. And I kept thinking too, I could use that with coaching clients, right? Like it would give me so much insight that I could get instead of having a million conversations with them. I would learn so much just from looking at their hands.
Right. And what direction to go.
Mm-hmm.
Exactly.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. So that was 2009.
Mm-hmm.
And then the next time you did anything related to hands was?
Yeah. So in 2000, then I went to an event put on by a hand analyst. And so I, got my interest going even more. And I couldn't stop thinking about it. So I was Googling it. I bought the only book I could find. I thought, I'm going to learn this on my own. And then I realized, I need a teacher because there's not much available, and I need someone who can answer all my questions. So then I went to another event, and that's where I met you, actually. Saw you for the first time. And that's when I knew I needed to sign up and study hands. So that's when I started.
2011, right?
Mm-hmm. Yep,
yes.
2011.
Right.
Yep.
Okay, fabulous. So good for you. So that's how you got in this lane of hand analysis.
Yes.
Yeah. So the first time you had your hands read, you just shared a lot about how impactful that was. Was there anything you wanted to add to that, or did you cover everything? I mean, obviously impassioned you for wanting to learn more about yourself.
Right. Yeah. And, I learned so much more about my hands as I studied hands, obviously, because we went into a lot more depth. And so there's a lot more I could say about what I learned about myself. I can do that now, or I can do that later. So
let's do it a little bit later. But yeah.
Okay.
Okay. Yeah. All right. So you decided to learn hands because you just it feels like you just felt like a magnet.
Yes.
You just, no matter what, I just have to learn this somehow.
Yeah. I mean, I felt like I couldn't not learn it. And I'm someone who loves to learn anyway, so I'll just say in general, I always want to know and understand the details of things. So when someone tells me something, I want to know, well, how do you know that? Wow, where'd you get that? And I don't know, that's partly my science and math background and how I grew up. My parents are both medical people, and there was always kind of proving and explaining and details. But then at the same time, I've always been drawn to things that are sort of unexplainable. So I think I like the both sides of that. But as far as hands, there's so many things that I've wanted to learn and that I have studied at least a little bit. But with hands, I just kept coming back to it. And I think part of it is because we carry them with us everywhere we go. We all have them, and it's this map that was given to us. And I felt like, well, then I need to use it. It's here for me, right? And instead of it just being in a book or something, like, here it is, and I have it for a reason, and I want to know what to do with it and how to use it in my life. So that was a big piece, I think, for me, the tangible, like, here it is.
Yes. Yeah, that's one of the things I really like about hands after spending years doing astrology, is how hands are so tangible.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's one of my favorite things about hands. So what specifically did learning hands teach you about yourself, which is different than the reading, but learning the system?
Right. Yeah. So many things. One of the big things is I learned a lot of things about my behavior, but also sort of what I try to hide, what I grapple with most, all the different ways that can show up, because it seemed like, I thought I knew myself and I thought I knew how I did certain things, but it became a lot more clear when I had specific language and could really identify better, here's this thing and how it's this pattern in my life and how it keeps showing up. And I think a big piece for me too was taking some pressure off, because knowing that this was my design and what I came here to learn took the pressure off of like, oh, I screwed up again, or I did that thing again, or, oh, I can't believe I'm still having a problem with this, right? Where I used to be so hard on myself. Not to say I'm never hard on myself now, but it used to be an ongoing, that was one of my big problems. I was so hard on myself. And I think this took a lot of that pressure off, because I could say, oh, it's my life lesson again. I see what's happening here. I could laugh about it a little more, but also I could just I could be more compassionate with myself, because I understood what was going on, and I was able to notice, just have the awareness so much more quickly of what was going on in my life and why I was doing what I was doing or how I was feeling. And, that's a big one for me too, is like vulnerability, things that have been challenging for me, being able to work on those more consciously and explore those things. But again, with a little more ease and compassion, and not like I have to figure this out, but it's something to do for this lifetime, right? It's what I'm here to do. So it's okay.
And to be.
Yes. Yes. Not just to do. Yes.
Yes.
Exactly.
And to be. Yes. So I'm going to ask you, is it okay if I share something about your hands?
Oh yeah, sure.
Okay. So the School of Wisdom in your fingerprints, and also the School of Love in your fingerprints, I can see where the vulnerability issues come up about relationship dynamics, and also wanting to know everything from the perspective. So that is a very strong motivating factor that I get for you. But you also have really a lot of intuitive markers in your hands. And so I just wanted to bring in the conversation about trusting your gut on this journey, trusting your instincts, your intuition. Like, how was that? How did you employ that?
Yeah, that's one, as you know, it's been challenging for me. I've had a lot of resistance around it. Again, I think partly because of that attention to detail and wanting to be able to prove and know and understand things. and not wanting to get it wrong. So I think, kind of using my intuition, it's like, but what if that's not right? I can't prove it. I can't tell you exactly why. And I think I've been using my intuition my whole life. Of course, I didn't always call it that. I didn't always recognize it, right? But there are certain areas where I wouldn't do it, because I would feel like I needed to rely on my brain and my mental abilities and figure it out and get the right answer. And I didn't want to screw it up. But that's really held me back a lot. So, I'm very aware of that. I see that now, all the places where I've held back and been afraid to do things because I'm trying so hard to analyze it and figure it out and get the right answer instead of just going with what I know, my internal wisdom, right?
Right.
So, yeah, it's a process.
That's shifted, though. My experience of use, that has shifted.
It has shifted, yeah, and there's still more growth available for sure, but it's definitely shifted. So, yeah, making progress on that. Yeah. But I love the two. Again, I think one of my big things in life is about duality. I've realized like so much of what defines me and what I'm drawn to has to do with duality, and that so much of life people look at it as an either or. And I'm recognizing that so much of what I want to teach has to do with both and, that it's not either or, and bringing the two pieces, whatever they are, together. And so that's, for me, the big thing there is the intellectual and the intuitive, bringing those together. So that's what I'm working with.
Yes, the database and the intuitive gut knowledge, right?
Right.
Yeah, because they're both important in the hands world.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. So this leads me to this question of, why do you want to teach hand analysis? Like, what is the passion behind that? Yeah,
well, first of all, I just feel like not enough people know about it. So there aren't very many teachers. Like I said, I had looked everywhere trying to learn it on my own and just wasn't coming up with much. And so, and then I took just about every class you can possibly take with every teacher out there.
Right.
School of Wisdom, what can I say? But I loved it. I loved all the different teaching styles and learning different wording. But I want to add to that. I feel like there need to be more teachers. It needs to be common knowledge. Like astrology. Like everyone's heard of astrology. People know their sign, right? And I just would love it if people knew their purpose and their heartline type and all those different things that you can learn from your hands, that you could easily have a conversation with someone about if you knew it and they did too. And just how much easier everyone's lives would be, and how much easier it would be to communicate and interact with each other if we understood these things about ourselves and each other. And so I want to spread it.
Okay.
Yeah.
So I want to say something about heart lines, because to me, knowing your heart line could be the easiest conversation to have, like what's your sun sign, like what's your astrology sign, right? Because most people don't know much at all else about their astrology chart other than their sun sign. And the heart lines are that easy to identify for the most part. Most people's heart line are pretty easy to identify, which is one of the reasons that we want to do a class in heart lines, because it's so recognizable for people to figure things out about that and have some conversation about what that means. So talk to me about your passion around heart lines. Like, how has that served you to know your heart line type?
Well,
and share what it is, what type you have.
So I have the same type on both hands, which not everyone does, but I have what's called the hermit heartline type on both hands, which is an earthy type. And so I tend to be more reserved when it comes to expressing emotionally or expressing anything. I can be very stoic and reserved. I choose when I let people know things about me as far as how I'm feeling or what I'm thinking. And I really, I can be pretty, I think I'm an extrovert, barely, but I really, I'm always right on the line with Tess, but I think I am an extrovert. And I love my time to myself. So that's really important to me, is having my own space and my own time for me. And that's important, in all my relationships, because I think when, we can all think of someone that we know who shuts down or gets quiet or doesn't express or just wants to spend time alone or away from us, and we think like, what did I do, or why aren't you sharing with me, or that type of thing. And I know that people close to me have felt that way, and it's caused problems in relationships for me in the past with my family and with other types of relationships. And so now I have language around that to explain, it's all about me and who I am and how I'm designed. It has nothing to do with you.
That's
and whether
right.
I like you or not.
Right.
And so that's really helped me a lot in understanding that and giving myself permission to be the type that I am. It's another thing about it is it's me first. And I used to feel really guilty and bad about that, because especially as a female, I've always been taught, you should be really generous and kind and take care of everybody else and be nurturing. And I'm like, I don't want to. I mean, every once in a while, but that's not my main way of being in the world. And I care deeply for people, but nurturing isn't my way of showing that. So yeah, that has been really helpful for me. Again, taking pressure off and really understanding at a deeper level who I am and owning it.
Yes.
This is a big piece, really giving myself permission to be who I am and to own it and to feel good about it.
Right.
And to recognize that other people are other types and feel, and be okay with that too. Right.
Right. Yes. Yes. Yeah. And learning that what the other types mean for them and why they behave the way they behave based.
Yes, exactly.
So that you don't have to how come you're not like me? Right.
Yeah. Now I think everyone should be like me, but they're not.
But they're not. So what is one of the things I know about the student path of hermits is having trust issues with other people who don't live up to their commitments. So is there anything you'd like to share about how you've learned to deal with that?
Ooh, yeah, that's a good question. I definitely do struggle with that. I feel very betrayed if someone doesn't do what they say they're going to do. And I take it very personally. It feels like they have on purpose done something to hurt me. And it could be as simple as not showing up, when they said they were going to, right? It can
That's not simple for a hermit, by the way.
Right. Yeah. For some people listening, that might seem simple. For me, it's a big deal. And it has made it, so it's twofold. There's the side of really remembering that other people are other types and that they're not doing this on purpose to hurt me, and that they don't know what my expectations are necessarily and how big of a deal this is for me. And then the other side of it is, remembering to look at, what are my expectations? Are they reasonable? Have I expressed them? And when I say reasonable, everyone has their different definition of that, right? So, but being able, remembering to communicate what I need or want from other people in a relationship. And then also, again, if they don't meet that, being able to communicate about what's going on instead of just keeping it to myself and being pissed off, right? Which is a very easy thing for a hermit to do.
Very easy. Yes.
Yeah.
You're off my list. Awesome.
Yep. I'm not dealing with you again. Can't trust you.
Right. The lessons to learn. So going back to teaching then, how would you characterize or talk about your teaching style?
Well, so first of all, because details are important to me, I definitely like to make sure that the information is easily understood, that it's explained in detail, that I like to pay attention to everyone who is in the group, to see where they are, making sure that they're with it. Because what I hate is for somebody to be left behind or be sitting there confused. So, I really want to check in. I like to make sure everyone is getting it. Because for me, that's part of what lights me up, is seeing the aha moments and the light bulbs when people go, oh, I get it now. I love that. So yeah, it's important to me to check in and make sure everyone's on the same page. But as far as how I teach, I like to keep it interesting and fun, and at the same time share a lot of content. So I do like to cover a lot, but again, but I really want it to be digestible and make sense. So I don't want to make it complicated. I want to make it as simple as possible with as much information as possible.
Right.
That's how I would say in a nutshell I am. Is that your
Yes,
experience of me?
that is. I was just going to say, Marlene went through learning how to become a hands teacher with me in 2014. So I know her teaching style, which is why I invited her to be a teacher for this class. I love your teaching style. And it reminds me of mine a lot because I have the same desire that people get what's being talked about and it makes sense to them and it's applicable. So yes, we have similar styles and similar desires in that way. And yes, Marlene is very, very good at communicating information, very clear. Yeah, which I really appreciate about you because it's just so easy to learn from you because you're so
Okay,
clear
thanks.
about what you're communicating. And I'm going to go back. Somebody else just ended up being on the screen here. So now I need to go back and find. There we go. Why are you? There we go. Okay. All right. So is there anything else you wanted to add that we haven't covered yet? Because I'm going to open it up to the audience as well.
Okay. Yeah, I would just say that, one of the things that is so important to me with hands and basically any learning that you do about yourself is just how it can help you show up in your life and get more into alignment with why you're here and who you came to be, and that just opens up everything and makes everything feel better. Your relationships, your work, everything. And that's really, the work that I love to do with people is helping them to learn who they are at their core, or remember who they are, discover who they are, and embrace that, to really own and embrace that and be able to live from that place as much as possible. And so it's just super important to me. And it's the journey I'm still on. I mean, it's not like I've got it all figured out,
Right.
but I've certainly come a long way, and hands have been a big piece of that. So.
I know I'm still learning stuff about myself through my hands as well. So yes, that's the thing I love about hands is that it's not like it's a finite, it's expansive, and there's always more language or stories, examples to understand things in more depth so that it sinks in a different way. And I love that about hands.
Right.
It's fun. And it is fun. And Marlene has a good sense of humor, by the way, as well, which also makes class fun. Okay, I'm going to open up now. If anybody has any questions, I see that Michelle has been posting in the chat box, so I'm going to share. She also said that she's in the School of Love and Wisdom, so she could appreciate that. But she said, I'm glad to hear you explain how you operate with a Hermit Heartline, as I used to feel so concerned about my daughters. Why are they not wanting to help others more? Take care of their babies. Take care of babies. Love youngsters. They have Hermit Heartlines, whereas I have a big heart, romantic idealist, and a Hermit on both of my hands. So, yes. Good, Michelle. Yes, I'm glad you know that about your daughters. I know that we looked at your hands many years ago, but I'm glad you know that about them so that you, as a parent, this is another really good point, as a parent, can honor your child's style and not have to have them be like you.
Yeah, and I'll just add, as a parent, because she was talking about, them with babies, right? That being a parent is the hardest thing I ever have done, especially when my daughter was a baby, because babies they need help all the time. And that was hard for me. I wanted breaks. I wanted time away when I didn't have to be mom, and babies need a lot. So it was very challenging for me. And I feel guilty, like I just want to go. It's like, not right now. And I mean, I loved her dearly, still do. But yeah, it was hard. It was hard to be in that position all the time, or most of the time.
And now that she's away at college, are things easier?
Oh, yeah. I mean, every year as she got older, every year was easier as she became more self-sufficient. And I miss her dearly now. Oh, my God, I would love to spend more time with her. But, she doesn't need me in that same way. So it's totally different. But babies are, I think, tough for hermits.
Yeah. I agree. It would be nice if a hermit who had a child had a partner who was a big-hearted romantic idealist. That would be fabulous. Who was home and available. Okay, are there any other comments or questions? You're all muted, so you would have to unmute yourself, and you can unmute your video if you want. You can verbally get involved in conversation with Marlene or me if you want to do that. We'll talk about the Heartlines class in a minute. Anybody have any other questions or comments? Sarah, did you have something you wanted to say? Hi, Sarah.
I do. I live in North Carolina. I live in a little town called Spencer. I'm currently in Pamela's class to learn hand analysis. I've kind of danced around and not done the big class until here recently. I took a class with Pamela and Beth Davis about gift markings, and then I took one called Advanced Purpose Mastery. So I had some knowledge coming into the class, but I've really learned a tremendous amount. But I'm now at the point of, well, what do I do? Do I read hands? Do I incorporate this in a softer, less direct approach? Or do I invest more time, energy, and effort and go on, because I feel like there's like lots and lots of learning opportunities out there? Or, do I just kind of stop for a moment and read hands for a while and then come back for more? So tell me about your journey and from that perspective of it becoming a business.
Right. Well, first of all, I'm in North Carolina too. So I've heard of Spencer. Yeah, it is small. And I know we're in the Bible Belt, right? So it's kind of interesting doing things like this. Some people are not so open to it, and other people are super interested. So one of the things that I did early on that I recommend is finding events. They can be really small. It doesn't even have to be paid at first, where you can do really short readings, because a lot of people are curious and they're much more willing to come up to a table and get a quick reading than maybe sign up for a full big reading up front. But it gives you tons of experience and talking with a lot and seeing a lot of hands. That, to me, I was amazed in the beginning at how different hands look, because you're used to how your own hands look, and then you start seeing other people's and you're like, well, they're so different. But it really increased my confidence pretty quickly, and helped me practice a ton, and also got people interested who maybe would never have known about it, right? And there opportunities came about, and I know you're in a small town, but I was in a bigger place, but not huge, and opportunities did come up. So if you're a part of any kind of groups, if there are any groups in your area where you could find out about events that are happening and offer your services, that really helped me initially. And then I also did get where I would get a booth at a bigger event, and you could maybe go to Charlotte or Raleigh when an event comes, where you could actually get a booth and do readings there where you charge, whatever you choose. But that was a good way for me to get started. And then also, of course, I would offer full readings to people who wanted more information. And I went to other types of events myself as a participant and met people there. And that helped too, to start getting clients and learning other ways of doing that. So is that helpful?
Looks like Sarah's screen froze.
Uh-oh.
I would say that's exactly what I also did. And I'm sure that I've told you that, Marlene, but I read at a lot of psychic fairs and did short readings, 5-minute, 10-minute readings. And I agree with you, not only looking at how different hands are, but having to talk about only a little piece, one thing, and helping people with one thing was really, really helpful. So yeah, if any of you are also curious about if you're going to use hands in some way. You know, Ellen, who's on this call, actually learned how to read hands from Richard before I did. But she does many other amazing things. But that's a very valuable skill set, is having experience of being out in the public and just exposing yourself in some way. So I'm sure Sarah will come back on. All right, any other questions or comments? Okay. I am going to mute you for a minute, Marlene, because if I don't, then I can't make the screen bigger for me to talk about the class, and then all right, how do I do this? Speaker view. This is making me a little crazy here. Okay, it's still coming back to you. So I'm just going to go back to all of us, speaker view. All right, so I will unmute both Michael and Marlene, because we're going to talk about the class. Michael and I cannot unmute you. And there we go. And you can unmute your video. So tomorrow I'm having an interview with Michael Lynn, so we can learn about Michael Lynn's teaching and relationship with hands as well. But we're starting a class on May 22nd. And it's an 8-week class that we're going to be doing. And the difference between this and some of the other hands classes that I've certainly taught, I've been teaching Heartlines classes for a couple decades. One of the things we're going to do that's different with this class is we're going to have a lot of conversation about the elements and how the elements of like fire, earth, and water apply to the Heartline types. It provides a whole different perception of understanding the Heartlines than just knowing the data. And it's easier, I think, to remember the information when you can relate it to something very tangible as that. So all three of us are going to be teaching this class. I'm excited about doing that. The certification that you can receive at the end of this is to be certified to read Heartlines if you want to. It's optional, totally up to you. The class is $450. I have in my newsletter that I sent out on I sent out this morning. I sent out an announcement for today's thing. There's a lot of information about the class in that. And you can read more of the details, and there's a link for payment if you decide you want to participate. So anything else you'd like to say about it, Marlene and Michael?
Well, sure. I'll just say, since I was just talking about doing the short readings at fairs and events, Heartlines are what I started with. It's one of the easiest things to do short readings with, especially when you're getting started, because everyone has a Heartline. You can see it clearly on their hand. You don't have to use, magnifying glass or anything. And so it's something that you can easily talk about, and it's so readily applicable to everyone. So that's a great starting point if you're new to hands, and if you're not, it's still a great starting point if you want to get yourself out there and start doing readings. But also, if you don't want to do readings, it's great just for your relationships and your life, understanding, each person and what their type is and how to interact with them. So,
and your clients.
Your clients, yes, clients, family, friends, everyone. I think it's just a super perfect starting place with hands.
I agree.
And I would agree as well. I think it's unusual, first of all, to have 3 teachers for one class. So lots of rich experiences and different teaching styles and wisdom that's available to the students. And we all have very different Heartlines, the 3 of us. We have 3 out of the 4 Heartlines represented. So you get to hear it from the horse's mouth. So what it's like to be a big heart, what it's like to be a hermit, what it's like to be a romantic idealist. We're just missing the passionate at this point, but I think we can cover that pretty well between the 3 of us. So I'm really excited to be teaching with the 2 of you. Can't wait for the class.
Thank you. And yes, Heartlines, if you're not aware of that, Heartlines are the emotional line in the hand, and they are about how you express your feelings. It's the only line in the hands that really gets into detail about how you express feelings, and how the other Heartline types express feelings, which is not the same. They're not motivated by the same thing, and they don't need to express in the same way. They have their own design. Learning that, wow, what a difference that can make in relationships if you just knew other people's heartline types and paid attention to it and honored, as Marlene and I were talking about earlier, really honoring other people's heartline types so that they can be true to themselves, and then you get to have more authentic relationships as a result of that. I love heartlines. When I was learning in 1991, in February of 1991, I took my first intensive on hands, and I remember when we got to heartlines, it was the second day. I was so relieved because all the other stuff was I was getting already brain dead before we got the fingerprint stuff, so I didn't remember anything about fingerprints. But the heartlines, I just had tons of notes, and it's like, oh, I so resonate with this. I so like this. When I first started teaching in the 90s, I was teaching heartlines classes, and my first book was on heartlines. I have a real passion for the power of understanding heartlines and the value of understanding heartlines and owning yours and giving other people permission to own theirs. So that's my passion for this. Is not that I don't have passion for other parts of the hands, but this one is like, love it. My Heartlines book is getting ready to go into Kindle, so it's going to be more available soon. All right, any other questions, comments?
I would just like to emphasize for people who have studied hands in the past and might be considering this class, there is so much depth to be learned about heartlines. And I think we'll be able to cover a significant amount of that in this class, not only the beginning information, the basic characteristics of each heartline type, but some of the deeper, more transformative insights about each of the hand analysis or the heartline styles. I've been studying hands for almost 7 years now, and I am just going through a heartline renaissance.
You are.
Learning a lot of new information about the big heart and about the hermit and other heartlines too. So there's always more information to be learned and practiced and shared. If you're considering whether this hand class might apply to you, I would let you know that there will be new information.
Yeah, there will be, especially since we're adding the elements piece too. But also the ongoing, all of us, our ongoing relationship with our heartline types and what keeps evolving and what we become aware of. Yeah, lots of stories and examples. People remember stories. There's a super billion-dollar industry called TVs and movies that's all about story. So we have a lot of story sharing in the classes, yours and ours, so both and. All right, thank you, Michael, and for that. Any other comments, questions? Okay, if there's nothing else, then we are going to be complete. Thank you, Marlene, for interviewing. And like I said, we'll be talking tomorrow. Nellie, hi, Nellie. Did you have a question? No, okay. Tomorrow we'll be talking with Michaelin at 1:30 Pacific on the same Zoom link that you had today. And that also will be recorded. So those will be up on the True to Your Design website when Michaelin gets them there. All right, thanks everybody for being here.